Welcome to the Best Business Podcast, the podcast for established marketers, entrepreneurs, and CEOs, the ones who want to join me in my mission to create 200 new multi-millionaires who solve world problems with entrepreneurship. If that's you, then this podcast was created to give you access to the tools, training, strategies, and tactics you need to achieve multiple seven-figure profits as soon as possible. This world needs the best business you can build, so please get ready, open your mind, believe you can do this, and let's build a better world together for future generations. Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we are joined by a very special guest, Danny Flood. And Danny is the author of 5 best-selling books, including Buy Your Own Island, Hack Sleep, and Hack Email. He's a solopreneur and podcast host who works with many of the top entrepreneurs and coaches in the world. I've asked him to join us today and share some of his insights on life hacking and being a lifestyle entrepreneur. So, Danny, thank you for joining us, my friend. How are you doing?
Hey, Daryl. Hello from Bangkok. It's great to be on the show finally. We've been talking about this for a while.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate you putting some time in your schedule. So, yeah, and Thailand's definitely a great place to be if you're a lifestyle entrepreneur. I spent a month there, and it was fantastic. So, yeah, hats off to you. That's awesome. So,
that's great.
I wanted to ask though, how did you even get started? So now obviously you travel internationally, you stay somewhere for a while if you want and travel as you please, you work online, but was life always this way? Were you always working online? Do you come from a family of entrepreneurs? How did you even get going?
Yeah, so I kind of just arrived where I'm at just today through a bunch of blood, sweat, and tears. There was no shortcut for sure. I've been pretty much a nomad since 2009, but it just kind of started out small. Like I did small trips, kind of like mini retirements.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to Mexico. Like I used to surf in Mexico a lot, so I went down and lived there for about almost 2 months. Everything went fine, and then I booked a one-way ticket for 3 months to South America. And every time it just gets longer and longer. So now I'm a permanent traveler. I've been on the road 2 years full time now.
That's awesome.
But yeah, like I said, it wasn't easy. I just have to do things. There's a saying that life keeps teaching you a lesson until you learn it.
Right.
So I kept doing things the wrong way until I figured things out. And I put everything I learned into this first book, my book, Buy Your Own Island, which is kind of like what I wish I had. It's like a playbook that I wish I had in the beginning. And and a big part of it is how to set up a location-independent business, like a business that gives you freedom instead of tethering you to a job that you can't quit.
Yeah, very, very true. Got it. So no family background of entrepreneurship, no nothing. You just kind of threw yourself into it.
Yeah, I've got family background. My father was an entrepreneur, so
okay.
Yeah, he started 2 companies, Odyssey Golf and Aldala Golf. So Aldala is the graphite golf shafts. He created the graphite golf shaft and Odyssey putters. So those are a really popular putter brand. He created those 2 businesses, and he brought me up as an entrepreneur. So ever since I was like 7 years old, I was going around knocking on our neighbors' doors, offering to take out the trash for them.
That's awesome.
Condo development, and by the time I was 10, I think we were making those things called pugs. They're like this game that we used to play. So we would make those, and we'd try to sell them, try to hustle them. Never made much money, but just kind of learned,
Right.
You got to go through a succession of business failures before you have a successful one. So.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. That's wild. So your dad got you into it, which is great. That really got you started. So do you feel that you've come through any milestones then in your progression, in your career as an entrepreneur? Like in the beginning, like you said, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Were there stages that you had to progress through and things that you figured out?
Yeah, there's a lot of things I figured out. In the beginning, I had a lot of baggage, I guess, internally. So, the first part of my book is all about like the inner game, Buy Your Own Island, and just like secret excuses, abstract fears. My goals weren't very well defined. They weren't SMART goals. I just had this kind of abstract vision of what I wanted, but I felt like I was just spinning the wheels. I wasn't getting anywhere. And today, I'm very specific. I like to break things down, reconstruct, reverse engineer from the result that I want to get where I want to go. And Several years later, I've traveled to over 30 countries. I've started several startups, and yeah, man. I love this lifestyle because I love being an entrepreneur. Because the more I put into it, the more I get out of it, and I can write my own paycheck basically. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't imagine working for anyone else either, especially after you get the taste of the freedom of being an entrepreneur and traveling around. That's awesome.
I've tried to work at jobs before, but I never lasted more than a month. So I was like, it's just not for me. And there was a couple of times when I really wanted something, secure. I'm like, I'm tired of all this uncertainty. Like I was hopping around countries and I was like living in the jungle in Borneo. Because most of my money ran out. I was trying to do this new business and I spent all my money after like 6 months. And I was like, all right, I'll just get a job. It's a 6-month seasonal job, and it was terrible. And I got fired after a month. So I was like, all right, my destiny is to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's actually how a lot of entrepreneurs get started. We're unemployable or we just don't fit well into those molds. So what was like the single biggest challenge for you, do you feel, in your business career as an entrepreneur? Was it just trying to get yourself organized? Was it finding a product market match that worked, scaling up, building the team? What for you kind of do you feel has been the biggest struggle that you've had as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a good point. That's a good thing. Good question. There's been a number of challenges for sure, but one thing I'm still trying to figure out and do better is scaling up, definitely. Um, but I don't know. I'm kind of divided on it because I don't really know if I want to create a huge company. Like when I created I had an agency and I was able to get it to where I was only working 10 hours a week, and I was making enough. I wasn't making a ton of money, but I was able to travel, do everything I wanted. I never was hurting for money. I was only working 2 hours a day, so I call that like a lifestyle business. But I'm kind of divided about whether I would want to have like a really big business and have to manage it, or whether I want just like something that's works smart, works hard, and very efficient. And I know some people, like you've interviewed James Schramko, like he says you can have both. So that's something I'm trying to figure out. Let me know your thoughts.
Well, I think it's true. It's depends. It's funny. It depends on the value that you create and then the models. So, if you're sincerely asking my opinion, I see some people peg themselves. Actually, I've seen this a lot, even with friends of mine, where they think they're going to build this business and they're going to do all this great stuff, but it's like they're selling their hours, and then it's like, well, what are your income goals? Okay, and blank units times blank price equals your income goal. Let's say $1,000,000. So it's 1,000 units at $1,000, or 2,000 units at $500, or 500 units at $2,000. And we start talking to them, and then they find out that the arithmetic, the basic fundamental math, won't has a cap on it because there's not enough hours in the day, and even though that some of these people, and this isn't to speak to you at all because you're totally set, but some of these people, they have kind of like a lifestyle business, but they're still chained to the dollar per hour, trap, so to speak. So at the end of the day, if you've got a process you can leverage or a team you can hire, it's having a sales process. Aaron Ross, I think the author of Predictable Revenue, said it best. You have to have a sales and marketing system that can take strangers, complete strangers, and get them to know you well enough that they'll buy from you. And that's really where a lot of it is. And you have a podcast, you've interviewed tons of people, but one of the things just in my careers and having done small $10,000 launches and building automated funnels that have done millions and millions of dollars is being able, one, to get paid media to work. That's a huge one, because you can't scale a JV. There's only 3 ways to get traffic: buy it, borrow it, or build it. In this podcast that I've got and the podcast you got, we're building a following, we're building traffic. If I were to tell someone listening to this to go check something out, odds are good that a good percentage of them would, because of the relationship that I built with them. But that's not scalable because I can't go get another 1,000 podcast fans just like snapping my fingers, and same thing with content marketing. There's this whole big buzz on inbound marketing, but you can't publish and hit and get ranked in Google like so fast. Like you just can't do that. But if you've got a process that that if I spend money to just put this in front of people, that if this, you know what I mean? Like if my click-through rates are in this range, then all of a sudden, like you can literally go, we would like 300 leads today, and go out and just buy them, and boom, there you go, and scale it. And that's something that you see any company, and I think that's what James is talking about in the sense where, he's got it really good down, where he's got a process where, you can use JVs, which is boring it, but he's got a process of JVs and paid traffic that allows him to build, I think a lot of it is his podcast following. Well,
you brought up a couple of points there. I mean, one, obviously, you need to be very specific about what your goals are. And a lot of people I talk to, they just say, I want a profitable business, or I want a viable business. That's my only goal.
Yeah.
Or I want to go to the gym because I want to get fit. And that's, you're not going to make any progress. You're not even measuring your progress. But the other thing that James Schramm coach calls it your black box advantage.
Okay.
So each company should have this black box advantage where it could be like a piece of software, it could be a process. It's basically your competitive advantage that is going to get you ahead of all the other people out there. And so in your case, I mean, I think it starts with really identifying your strengths as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're obviously very good at, creating marketing systems. That's what your forte is. So I think if an entrepreneur, if you can identify what your strengths are and really milk that to its fullest potential, really use that to its fullest potential, then I think you can really do fun things.
Yeah. No, definitely. And at the end of the day, I think it's important, like you kind of said before, you talked about he said you can have both, but does everybody want both? Not everybody wants both. Because when you do have, and depending on the industry you're in, I mean, even look at Elon Musk. He can't really go a lot of places, and do stuff. There's a lot of guys. We've had Ryan Levesque on our show. He's a bit of a celebrity as well, and that comes with that's a blessing and a curse, in disguise. In some ways, sometimes it's nice to be unknown and have this little thing going on that no one really knows about that makes money. I know one of my mentors told me, when you're making good money in a niche. I actually have a client that I helped build a funnel for that she went from 20 grand a month to 100,000 a month to 600,000 in a month, and she doesn't want, I can't get a testimonial because she doesn't want anyone to know what niche she's in. It's that simple, because if you're making money in niche, just shut up, because if you start telling everybody about how great it is and all the money you're making, guess what, you're going to get a bunch of copycats. And we're kind of seeing that with a lot of these other people, and even Ryan. There's a lot of ask funnel survey. I mean, surveys have been around forever, so it's not like Ryan owns it, but he's got his own thing, and now there's a lot of copycats that are coming from it. So it's a catch-22, and I think at the end of the day, it depends on what kind of customers do you want to have. I don't think it's realistic to think that you'll have a business where you never interact with your customers. I don't necessarily. I mean, some people maybe have that, but I think it's people. All company is a group of people working together to achieve a common goal, and usually that common goal is to deliver a product or a service to a particular group of people suffering from a particular problem. So it's all people, it's all people, and so in some ways, there might be.
And I think that's what I was going to bring up too, is that people can try to copy you, but they can't be you.
Yeah.
And if you're able to be indispensable, because all businesses grow as a result of conversations.
Yeah.
So when I'm starting a new MVP or a new startup, a new service-based business, I'm just booking as many appointments as I can, having as many conversations as I possibly can with people who are experts at it, people who could be prospects, people who are leads. I want to talk to my clients, and you really need to have a system in place to be communicating with them constantly in some form, whether it's you calling them directly, whether it's you having a newsletter that's really engaging them. Because, like you said, people can copy your business model, but they can't copy you. So as long as you're building those relationships, you're having those conversations, there's no way anyone can replace that. They can substitute that. You can't have any substitute for that.
In fact, that's actually, I just finished reading Ray Kroc's biography yesterday, and founder of, well, not the founder, but I guess the catalyst behind McDonald's. And that's what he'd said. He knew that copycats were going to be along anytime, but they couldn't innovate. So he always planned to be a week and a half at least ahead of them. And that was essentially their motto. And same thing with Sam Walton from Walmart. Just the same Walton, I think, from Walmart, reading about them. I mean, they used to just go and check out what all their competitors were doing, make a checklist of all the good things that they did that Walmart wasn't doing, and they had a weekly meeting. They literally had a weekly meeting where they would discuss all the great things they saw their competitors doing, and they'd go, okay, we're going to do this, this, this. And the regional managers would call all their stores, and they had a thing where, they would have their meeting on Friday morning, and by Saturday, all the stores would have it implemented. And they wanted to, the whole company motto was to get rid of let's think about it, because all that thinking happened at the top, and it was all about execution, because it's a fast-moving world, and they just wanted to stay a step ahead of everyone. So I think there's value in that, in what you said. So, and I mean,
that's a great point. That's you steal like an artist, basically, and you can take something from another niche, or a completely different industry, and apply it to your own.
Yes.
So I do that often. Like if I want to borrow an idea for an advertisement or something, for example. And there was actually a story I read about this famous art director in New York. This was like 60 years ago, and he won all these awards and stuff. And this one guy went in and was interning for him, or he was doing the copywriting for him, and he was like, all right, we need to work on this ad. And he would go through a stack of magazines. And he's like, boom, we'll just take this layout, we'll apply it to the ad. And he's like, well, wasn't that stealing? And he's like, look, this is everything we want here. It's going to it's going to turn out perfect. So he applied the layout from the magazine to the advertisement, and boom, it looked amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a weird thing, because in school, it's funny because Michael Dell. Again, I've been reading a lot of bios lately. He was like, in my high school, they never taught a course on how to run a $3 billion company. And so they used to bring in consultants and borrow ideas from other people. And I think it's funny that you mentioned that, because obviously none of us want to have our stuff copied or stolen. And in school, they're really cracking down on plagiarism. But when you go and sign up at McDonald's, what are you paying? Like, you pay a couple $1 million and they go, hey, here's a copy of our operations manual, and here's a copy of all of our marketing material, and here's a copy of like the daily itinerary of what our best managers do, and here's a copy of all of our training resources. And so in a lot of ways, copying does, was it the pioneers get the arrows, the settlers get the land? And you don't want to outright just plagiarize someone, but I think that's a great thing that you brought up, by taking an example from one industry and bringing it somewhere else. I mean, that's just, it's revolutionized industries over and over and over again. You can take simple concepts that one group of people are doing and just apply it to another group of people for a different purpose.
And there's another important lesson here that people need to understand, is that you're starting with your end goal in mind, what you want to create.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're that's where your starting point is. You're not starting from a blank piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, most people, when they have goals, they start with a blank piece of paper. And it's far more successful to reverse engineer, to model success, and then say, what are the 3 steps I need to do? What do I exactly need to do to make it get this in the shortest amount of time possible?
Yep.
And Josh Waitzkin, he wrote the book The Art of Learning, and it's about Bobby Fischer. And the way he learned how to play chess as a child prodigy was he was taught how to checkmate the king first. So the whole objective of chess is to checkmate the king. But the way most people learn is that they learn the opening moves. They learn what the pawn does. They learn how to move their knights. They learn how to move the bishop. But then they don't become better players. And then they learn the opening moves. They network. They play against other rookies. And that's a really long way to improve. But if you can start with the end and learn how to checkmate, and then find like the best people the best players and then go up head to head against them. And you can rise so much faster that way. And there's another great example of this is David Heinemeier Hansen.
Mm-hmm.
He started the company Basecamp and 37 Signals, I want to say, yeah.
Yep.
He's actually a professional NASCAR driver too. He started when he was in his 30s. And, he started in the junior leagues, and he would just do good enough to qualify. He wasn't winning, and then he'd move up to the next league. And he did this up and up and up, always bumping up in the league. And then finally he was competing with the best. And then he went back to a year later, he went back to his local circuits, and he crushed the competition. It wasn't even close.
That's so awesome.
There's a really important lesson here is that, starting with a successful model, learn how you can get that in the shortest amount of time possible. Find the best people and become friends with them. And I forgot the last point, but yeah.
Yeah, but no, I wanted to talk about that because, first of all, just I was looking for an example, and Dell, I already mentioned it, was a great example. He took Henry Ford's assembly line process and applied it to computers. And that was an example of taking and copying, just verbatim copying something someone else had done. And car manufacturers doing it left, right, and center, but applying it to a new industry and then dominating that industry. So that was an example. But the other thing that you were talking about that I thought was really powerful is modeling. And I think modeling is something, I mean, that's it's not the only reason why I do this podcast, but it's a big part of why I do this podcast because personally myself, I'm an ambitious person and I want to know, like, I want the shortcuts. I don't necessarily want it to be easy, but I don't want to waste time on things that are inefficient or ineffective. And one of the things that Tony Robbins, when he first got started, he was a lot of people call him a motivational speaker. He says he's an expert in human performance. And one of his earliest projects was working with the military on helping improve the skill of their marksmen, of their snipers. And so what they did is they found out who the best marksmen were, and they studied them and analyzed them and found the lowest common denominators between all the top marksmen, and then they modeled that into a training program, and then they put all the other marksmen through it, and everybody's scores went up, and that became the de facto training that they used then on forward, and it just pushed the level forward. And it was just, and even a buddy of mine, we've done an interview with him, it's another interview, great interview, Dan Fagella, he built a membership site from 0 to 75,000. Now they're almost at 250,000 a month. It's a membership site, and it just unlocks, and every month, hey, here's your next month's content. Hey, here, it's not like a magazine where they got to meet a deadline and send it out, and new people and old people are getting the same stuff. The new people, they're all starting at the very beginning, and the old people, if they're still going, he's just keeping up with that small group, and everyone else is kind of following along. And when we were talking, I just had a brain fart. Oh, we used to call it the Lamborghini test. That what you used to do is, you take a look at all the competitors in your market. Okay, I'm looking to get in this market. Who are my top competitors? Boom, let's put them all out on the table. And then let's remove anybody who couldn't realistically walk onto the car lot and buy a Lamborghini that day and be able to afford the payments. And that'll get rid of 99% of the competitors, 90%, okay? And then you take a look at who's left and what are they doing, and then model their success. And and there's something to be said for experience and time and relationship, and and an audience. It's hard to steal someone's audience. If someone's been in the game for 30 years and they've built this massive following, or they've got this huge, big name, people know, like, and trust that name, and they're going to be, a newcomer's going to have to fight to get into it. But you can really shorten your learning cycles if you just follow what worked, so.
Well, it's called standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yep. Yeah.
So you can't become the giant. It's himself, but you can stand on his shoulders and build on top of what he's created.
Yep.
And that's exactly what's happened with, like David Heinemeier Hansson. He created Ruby on Rails, which is kind of like a simplified version of, C++, and other older coding languages that existed before. So each programmer would come and they would build on top of the other programmer's effort, and able to create more elegant hierarchies as a result. And that's really the name of the game, because as entrepreneurs, we truly, in this age and in the century going forward, we live in a meritocracy. Everyone is going to advance. Like, how well you do is completely based on your own merit, and how well you're able to stand on the shoulder of giants and create even more than anyone has done before.
Yeah, I've got a favorite quote of mine. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up, and it knows it must outrun the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning in Africa, a lion wakes up, and it knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle or it will starve to death. And the moral of the story is, it doesn't matter if you're a lion or you're a gazelle, when the sun comes up, you better be running. And I think that kind of just speaks to what you just said there. And I love that quote so much. I really do. Because we don't even know what's coming. Like, that's the thing. Ray Kurzweil, if nobody knows him, he's a futurist. And he was an inventor. He invented the scanner that we use to scan photos and papers and stuff. And he tried to invent a bunch of different things. And a lot of the stuff he invented, by the time it came out, was obsolete. it was already outdated, and he would be frustrated. Obviously, he's trying to feed his family, he's trying to make a living and all this stuff. He spends all this time like making it and getting patents, and then it's no good. So he was like, how can I be where the puck is going to be? How can I go and be where things are going? And he started looking at technology advancing and at the and the data, and he noticed a trend that it was growing exponentially, that it was doubling and then doubling and then doubling and that doubling, and that nothing had curbed this growth trend in technology. That it didn't matter about politics, it didn't matter about war or disease, that this technology would be doubling and doubling and doubling. And so he made a bunch of predictions, and I think this was in the 1980s, and he made a bunch of predictions up until present day. And he's had an 86% accuracy rate. Even his critics have to give him, I think it's at least 78% of his predictions as accurate. And so now he's predicted a whole host of new things, and everyone's going crazy. And there's something called the Singularity University, where he's partnered up with Peter, I'm going to butcher his last name, Peter Diamandis, the guy behind the X Prize. And there's all this stuff coming through the pipeline that, like, it's hard for us to understand. Like, technology is doubling. Like, where we're at right now will be doubled. Like, in 5-10 years, we will have doubled our computer processing capacity. The technology, the parts are getting smaller. They're getting faster. We actually have quantum computers now. Like, the fact that we even have quantum computers, a Canadian company has built it. They sold it to Google, and I think they sold 3 to a couple of billionaires. Like, the fact that we can actually create a quantum computer is phenomenal. Like, that is millions and millions and millions of times faster than the average computer. And in 10-15 years, that technology will be available to everybody. And it's hard for us to all be able to predict how it's going to affect any of us. But I love what you say, because it's about your merit. It's about what you're putting into it. It's about what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to help? What are you trying to accomplish? And I just think that, like you said, a meritocracy, I've never heard that before, but I like that because it speaks to, like, the quote I said. It's, it's not even about where you are now. Even if you took a lot of our guests, probably yourself included, if I took you and I threw you into a strange country, you know what I mean? Give you just a little bit of money to get by. In 6 months to a year, you would be back and up and running again with some sort of business because of the skills you've developed. And I think that kind of goes back to the the meritocracy that you talked about, where
it wouldn't take me 6 months.
Right? But that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because of the skill you developed. It's like, it's a love of the grind and embracing the grind and, like, understanding this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is what I want and need to be happy. And this is what my day-to-day life should look like. And just living it, and you'll have ups and downs and good days and bad days. But as long as you keep your eye on the prize and begin with the end in mind, which is what kind of business you want to have, what kind of customers you want to have, where you want to be in your deathbed. I think that's just a really great philosophy to have, and I think that well, thank you for bringing that up.
You mentioned a deathbed. I mean, that's okay. Well, you mentioned a lot of things, but
yeah, sorry, I went on a tangent there. It's your interview, and I kind of stole it. My apologies.
Yeah. No. I mean, there's a bunch of different things you can touch on. One person said the best way to predict the future is to create it. Yeah. I don't know who the source of that is, because there's several sources for that quote. But you mentioned the deathbed, and thinking about death is one of the most powerful ways to really engage your life. Yes. And people who have visited Bhutan, they say that the Bhutanese are the happiest people on earth, and the secret is that they encounter death frequently. They do these sky burials where they'll put a body of a loved one on a hill or something like this, and the condors, the vultures will come and tear it to shreds. There was your mother, and suddenly she's being torn to shreds by these vultures. And even when I was in India a couple months ago, like, I would just see like a dead body on the street, and they're shaving this dead body, and there's all these people around, and this is something you don't usually see every day.
No, not in the
The point is that,
world.
like, living in a first world country, like living in like Canada or the U.S., someplace in Europe, you don't have any face-to-face encounter with death, or you don't really think about death too often.
Yep.
And if you did, you'd probably live your life a lot differently. And even I gotta like remind myself of it, because it's like it just kind of makes all of my concerns kind of melt away, I guess. I mean, all my little insecurities. I mean, even just like a few hours ago, I was at the dentist, and I just hate the feeling of being in a chair. I got something stuck in my mouth. I feel like I have no control, and I'm just hearing like this beeping noise, somewhere, like beep, 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 and I'm just imagining like this is what it's going to be like at the end of my life. I better get busy now, because I'm going to be laying in a bed somewhere completely helpless, hearing this beeping noise,
Yep.
and that terrifies me. That shocks me into action.
You know, I have another. It's not a quote, but I saw this. I actually saw it. My dad had cut it out of a newspaper, and I really value that. Like in the first world country, we live in a very sheltered, like fake world. It's just very fake. Like what you said. You know, I remember when I was in Africa. I remember that watching the news, it was like watching the Blair Witch. Like, dude, like has his camcorder. There'd been some gang shooting or something outside of Kenya. I spent like 9 weeks in Africa, 4 weeks in Kenya, 5 weeks in Uganda, and in Kenya, there'd been this shooting. Like some gang leader had been shot, and people thought the cops might have done it. And the news footage was like literally like this dude's camera, like camcorder, hitting record while the van, the station, not station wagon. Anyways, like the minivan like pulls up to this car that's drove off the road into a ditch, and the door opens, and you see the guy like walk over to the car, and he's just walking around it, and this dude, the driver's head is hanging out the window with like his brains hanging out, and they're splattered on the windshield, and the guy beside him is dead. Like that was the news. Like news was like, hey, we're on the scene, and you know, like whoa, it's kind of smelly, and that's definitely some flies in his brain, and looks like the passenger shot. Like that was the news. That was the news. You would never see that in North America ever. You would never see that. Like just a camera crew just walking over, like looking at the scene. Like we're so sheltered, so protected. But I think it's almost like with kids. They say you should treat your kids like adults. If you want them to act like adults, treat them like an adult. Anyways, so I think what you brought up is really important, and we're talking about the end in mind. And my father had cut out this thing out of a newspaper, and this is back maybe 2 years ago. I posted on Facebook, and I had like 70 friends, and it got shared almost 1,000 times. And it was the top regrets of the dying. And this is a short list that a nurse, Bonnie Ware, put together after years working in palliative care, so where people are on their deathbed. And she came up with these 5 things. So the first one was, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. The next one was, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. The next one was, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. Next was, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And the last was, I wish that I had let myself be happier. And I think all that speaks to the stuff that we're talking about today, about, you know, building a lifestyle business, about having customers that you want to deal with, about not necessarily being focused on having some big monstrous business, instead on trying to focus on who you want to serve, what kind of people you want to be around, how your day-to-day life should look, and just being you, you know, and just if that means traveling, then travel. If it means, you know, like just being authentic and letting yourself be yourself. Like you talked about, you had some jobs and you weren't happy, so you let yourself be happier. So I just think that that's a really great topic, and I think that there's a ton of value in that.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to be contradictory here too, because you mentioned you know, what people see on the news, like Western news. I mean, we do kind of sensationalize things, like we always hear stories like tragedy. I think,
Yep.
like shootings or terror attacks, and that kind of puts us into like a state of where
Fear,
the world is
yeah.
a fearful place. Yeah. So when I say talking about death, I mean, don't like be depressed about it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't pay any attention to the news, you know, at all. I don't read the news. I don't watch it. The only time I hear anything about the news is when people spam my news feed about the British exit or something like this,
Right.
Brexit. So I want to be clear here that it's not just about you know, saying, oh, the world is a dangerous place, people are getting killed. You know, there's a head hanging out of the car. The guy's brains are coming out, but really just coming to grips with your own mortality and letting that sink in, and realizing that how important the present moment is, and just that you shouldn't waste time. Because when I think about this, when I meditate on this, suddenly I have no desire to eat junk food. Suddenly I have no desire to waste time doing something that makes me unhappy. Suddenly I feel a need to really appreciate people in my life, to really appreciate everything, every little blessing, even if I don't notice it. Because when you come to grips with your own mortality that way, you really just value your life 10 times more.
Yep. Yeah. It's not about gloom and doom by any means, you know. Nature abhors a vacuum. There's a great philosopher, Alan Watts. I love Alan. If nobody here knows him, I think the first time I mentioned him was in an interview I did with Neil Patel, and apparently Neil listens to him as well, which I thought was kind of cool. And this guy used to be a priest. He was a Catholic priest, and he traveled the world and studied the world's religions. And this is long before the internet, so he actually had to go to the places and read the books and learn the languages and meet the people. And just the stuff that comes out of his mouth is some phenomenal stuff. And just, like, it's just everyone's really afraid of death, but there's nothing like, but you're dead. Like, so what are you afraid of? And just live. And, his thing is that, the purpose of life is just to live, but everyone's in a hurry, scurrying about as if there's something more to accomplish other than just being yourselves. And I think that we've built a big society here. And this is coming from, at least in my experience, speaking 3 languages, having traveled the world, having helped make millions of dollars, having been broke most of my life before that, like literally like hitchhiking across Canada because I couldn't afford the bus, stuff like that. And I just really think that there's a lot of truth to that, because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's just, like, why bother? I mean, there's 2 things that leads to. One is a philosophy of no days off, because when I look outside, you see the birds and the squirrels. Squirrels never like, you know what, I've worked so hard this week, I'm just going to lay around in my nest today, and I'm not going to worry about eating, and if any predators come up, I'm going to just say, hey, why don't you just bugger off, it's my day off. Like, the whole concept of days off is a human construct, because we're so advanced ahead of everybody. So every other animal on the planet is on their grind all day, every day, and every day they're doing all their favorite stuff, except for when something's trying to eat them alive. That's basically how it goes. And I think that humans should do that. So that's one part. But the other part is that's it. Like, that's it. There's not a lot of pressure on any other creature on the planet to do anything other than just to, like, wake up tomorrow. And I think humans can forget about that, worry about our bills and am I raising my kids right and all this stuff. Like, just live your life and just make sure that, it's a worthy one, that it's one that you'd like to repeat. I think that this has become quite a bit of a philosophical conversation, but I think there's really good value in that, because like you talked at the beginning, people start business often and they've failed at the very first step, because they don't have a target market. They don't know what they want to do for people. They just, like, it's about money, right? I want this. I want that. I want, and you can do that, but you have to do it through helping and serving others. I want to be surrounded by these type of people, helping them solve this type of problem, because I want to make this much money and have this kind of house, this kind of car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I see these questions pop up all the time, especially in like digital nomad forums online, because I'm in a bunch of these because it's my target market. And people are just saying like, "Oh, these are the skills I have. What can I do to support myself?" They're always. I just tell them, that's not the way to go about it. You have to find a need. You got to find a starving crowd, and you have to give them value. You got to find what you can give them.
Yep.
That's the secret to success, and it really is about giving value. And it's not just giving value, but you have to be smart about it too. Because you can't work with everyone.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a service business, you should do a productized service with a narrow focus, because you're going to get clients and they're going to say, oh, but I need to do PPC, I need to do a website, I need to do this. So suddenly you're wearing like 100 different hats and you're being their whipping boy.
Yep.
So if you're going to do a service basis, be very narrow in your focus. You need to like qualify for the right prospects, but you do need to give a lot of value. You need to give a lot of value so that you keep to the right people, and you need to keep people in your debt so that you can write your own paycheck, and as long as you become indispensable, then you never have to worry about running out of money.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you just said there about if you're going to be in a service business, to make it a sort of product. And I think this is a really valuable business point here that would benefit everybody on the call, no matter where you're at, because it's even good to remember. There's a great book called Built to Last, and in it, one of the big takeaways I got was having a standard service offering. And what that means is, because exactly like you said, if you do a service, you've got a couple of skilled people and you get clients that obviously, because they're paying you and maybe they're awesome clients and they're fun to work with, they're like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And we call that vendor or client creep. There's client creep and vendor creep, and that's when the initial agreement starts to grow, right? Whether it's your vendor starts trying to inflate your price, like recently, my internet, the deal promo, 8 months has expired, and now there's no way I can get what I had before without paying at least $20 more, which doesn't, makes you feel kind of some kind of way about it. But having a standard service offering, and this does a couple of things. One, it helps you market more effectively. You know exactly what you can do, how you're going to solve it. You can explain the whole process. It's really, really simple. The next most beneficial thing is it allows you to scale. So here's, and it's funny, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine. I'm going to interview him soon for the show. He used to manage a $100 million company. And his whole thing is he doesn't necessarily want a big long product line. He's like, I've built some very substantial sized businesses on just a handful of things. One piece of software, it was like an $8 million company. Like one thing, like just these really key problem solving things. And the reason being is that if you've got the standard service offering that you can deliver to people, this thing you do, one, not only is it easier to find those people, to explain what you can do for them, and to do it as a group, like to bring onboard more people, because it's like a streamlined conversation. You're not having, like you mentioned, you're not having conversation about, hey, I'll do your SEO. Yeah, I can do PP pay-per-click too. Yeah, I can kind of do copywriting. Yeah, I can kind of do your social media. Like, it's not that. It's, hey, I do this. Boom. It's a very straightforward conversation. It's easier to have with more people at one time than just one or two. And the next big benefit to that is that it allows you to train other people and maintain quality standards. Because if you're going to be baking apple pie all day, every day, it's easier. Yesterday I ran into a buddy. I was walking my dog. I ran into a buddy. He's got a restaurant downtown. He's got a Cambodian restaurant, and he's the cook. And he was talking about how they were closed because he's got helpers and that, but he's the only cook. And it's because he does these different things all the time, but he doesn't have his standard serving. And you want to be able to train other people to do it. You have to be able to train other people to do it, even if just for in the off of chance that you get hit by a bus and you're in the hospital, and obviously you got your medical bills and your life hasn't stopped and you need money coming through. Even if you're making less, you need someone that can cover for you. And it's so much easier to train someone. It's so much easier to maintain quality if you have a standard thing that you do, this bread and butter thing we do, going back to modeling, like what Tony Robbins did. I mean, if you're the best person that does in your company, then identify what are the keys that you do, create a training program out of it, and roll it out to, and train some other people. Hire a sales rep, have a couple of people part-time that can do that service offering for you, with you, and hire a sales rep or two. You don't necessarily need to be the person doing everything. What I love is when you look up entrepreneur, the definition in the dictionary, it says a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses. It doesn't say the person who answers the phone, mops the floor, takes the phone calls, does this, does that, takes special requests. It doesn't say any of that. Person who organizes and operates a business or businesses. So you don't even have to be the one that does the work. You just have to be the one that brings the people together and keeps the team cohesive, and is out in the community finding the people willing to spend the dollars. I mean, anyone with a car could be a cab driver, but why does someone work for a cab company? Because they have the phone number people call when they have their wallets out to get driven somewhere. And that's the problem, that anybody with their car, they don't like, where do I find the person that's going to pay me to do that? And that's the real value. The real value is being the go-to person to get blank done. And that's having a standard service offering. Sorry, I know I went a long tangent there, but that's just such a it's such a common trip up I see all the time, and I've committed myself over and over and over. And I'll probably look at myself and listen to this interview in the future and be like, I did it again. But yeah, would you just? It's because
there's so much you can add to this conversation too. I mean, it really comes from a place, when I say that, it's because it's about assessing your leads. Because for the last 7 years, pretty much everyone I've worked with are entrepreneurs. All my clients are entrepreneurs, but the word entrepreneur is thrown around so loosely these days that it can mean anything and everything.
Right.
And so I really need to get a really good idea. I've gotten good at assessing who I'm working with through initial conversation. And one thing you need to consider is that a lot of entrepreneurs, they have a scarcity mindset, so they're not the kind of people you want to work with. You need to work with people who have an abundance mindset, who have other people working for them, who have made hires before, who have hired someone in their lifetime, because otherwise they're going to be like, oh my God, I don't trust this guy, and what's he going to do? Because then they have too much of their own inner issues to work out. So this really comes from a place of, when I'm saying, creating a narrow focus, is because when I'm having all these conversations, when I'm in acquisition heavy mode for a new business, I'm having a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and a lot of them just aren't a good fit, and I need to identify, I need to put my foot down when it's not a good fit and say, look, I'm offering you a marketing service for social media or YouTube video, whatever. I'm not going to help you with your Facebook advertising. Yeah. Even if they're offering you money, it's just, you just got to be focused on that, and you got to say, this is what I'm offering. The Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, he says that it's a straight line between where you start out with a prospect and where you want to end up. And you need to keep them on that line because the prospect's going to try to wave you around, like I'll take you way off course, and you need to bring it back on course. You need to keep it on a conversation. Like, this is what they're going for the close. You can be polite, you can give them time, you can answer their questions and be patient, but you can't let the conversation go out of bounds. And some other things I want to add here too, you also need to be like a little bit nuanced about how you build out your business too, because we were talking about only offering one service, but I want to think that there's a book called Flip Your Funnel by Joseph Jaffe, and I think the money is really made on retaining customers.
Yes.
And there's a saying that you want to create new products to existing customers, not new customers for existing products. So I think that you really need to factor in acquisition cost. That's the most costly thing for an entrepreneur, for any business, and getting full lifetime value. And then you also need to consider your price. And your price, sometimes we price too low. Most of us price too low just because we don't have the right self-esteem. But you've arrived at a right price when you get some price resistance from the prospect, but they buy it anyway. So those are some things to consider, that once you have a narrow focus, but you still want to create new products, and then say, go back to your best customers because you've given them results, you have this relationship, your competitors can't come along and take them. That's when you can create a lifestyle business, which is what I did when I was able to create these relationships that were so strong. They depended on me so much, and they needed me to do more work for them every single month.
I really like that. Create new products for existing customers and get new customers for your existing products. I like that.
So it's just an important point to make, because you can do a product as service, but if you're only doing like a one-off service, for example, then you need to get so many customers and you need to spend so much time. But if you can get them in the door, really build those relationships, have as many conversations with them, show them how much you care, ask them. Tyrion from Game of Thrones, he's brilliant. I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, Daryl.
No,
but the reason he's so good is he asks everybody, tell me what you want. That's all he says. He's like, let's make this easy. Tell me what you want. And then he gives it to them. Yeah. And if everyone just did that, say, tell me what your goals are and listen, they would do so much better.
Yep. No, I'm with you like 1,000% on this one. That's such a great point. I'm sorry, you got my head spinning like 7 different directions. So I'm down with that. I'm like, yeah, what I love about that is it really is in retention, and that's a great lesson for anyone that's listening to this too. You want to try and sell subscription services, ongoing services, as best as possible. And some of that doesn't even have to be you that fulfills it. You can just be, if you sell, like say you install pools, well, maybe they need a patio, maybe they need a fence, maybe they need furniture, maybe they need some gardening and landscaping done. Those are all things that you can do to be of value to your customer and get a % of the action because you've channeled that person as well. And what that does for you is it increases what's called your lifetime customer value, which means the value of having a customer, which goes back to at the very beginning where I was talking about scale, and tells you what you can afford to spend to acquire a new person, because the reality is for the majority of businesses out there, every 6 years you'll have a brand new customer base. Even if it's like a gym membership or something like that, they say on average every 6 years. Of course there's a few exceptions, but generally speaking most people will have passed on and gone to do something else or try something else. So that back end is really where the money is, and friends for a reason, friends for a season, and friends for life, and be their friend for life to help them solve their problems with X.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I was doing my agency, I would go to my clients' baseball games. I would go have lunch with them. I would do everything. I would do so much to build those relationships, and a good example is like, it's not just what you sell, it's the experience that your clients have when they're working with you. And then it suddenly becomes almost irrelevant what you sell. Mm-hmm. So an example is like Disney World or Disneyland, for example. Like Disneyland, you basically have to pay an admission fee so you can go in and shop at their stores. But they're able to like create such a unique experience when you go in there that suddenly it becomes irrelevant. The money becomes irrelevant. Mm-hmm. It's just really about that customer experience. And, you always got to think about things that you can do for your clients. Especially for the right people, keep them in your debt. So like, you can set up introductions for your clients. You can link them to blog posts that are really important for them, for the business. Just always doing things to help them. Even if you're just like, a PPC manager, for example, just keep in touch with them, talk to them like, hell, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, whatever, and just always help them, and then they're like, he's like, I can't live my life without this person.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Becoming invaluable and creating experiences for them. That's a really good way to put it too. So now I want to ask you, do you feel that you have any habits or rituals or routines that have helped you in your path helped you be successful as an entrepreneur, that have helped kind of keep the ship afloat and things together while you've been traveling and on the move?
Yeah, I think a routine is invaluable. I think all entrepreneurs need routine, because I think if you're an entrepreneur who's just like waking up every day and you're like, what do I need to do today? You're never going to get ahead. You're always going to be like forgetting to do stuff, and you're always going to be reacting to things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's really important to have an intention, and remind yourself constantly. 2, you need to book certain days in advance for certain things, and not like when you wake up in the morning. So you don't make your to-do list when you wake up in the morning. So for example, like I'll have, Mondays, I'll only focus on, marketing related activities, sending emails, promoting blog posts, things like this, only like marketing, putting things on Pinterest. Wednesdays, like I'll only focus on creating content, for example. Fridays, I'll do kind of like a review my week. I'll review like the procedures of my business. So I'll say, this is my Instagram process, my Instagram procedure.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make this better? Can I use this app to build relationships better? Can I change my content schedule? So I'll use Friday for review, for example. And then usually like Tuesdays and Thursdays are kind of like, like more whatever I need to address, at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think like booking certain days in advance for certain things, because I don't like to do several things all in one day. Richard Bandler says that your mind doesn't get results, it goes in directions. So if I'm going in one direction, if I'm like really focused on creating content, I don't want to suddenly stop and then, write 20 emails. I want to be like in a marketing mind. I want to wear that hat and do that all day Monday. And then, Wednesday, I'm going to focus only on content. I'm not even going to check my email. And I can just get so much more done that way.
I like that. Your mind.
If you're already driving a car, 120 miles an hour, you're not going to stop it, and then suddenly go in the other direction. It's really time consuming. You're going to burn a lot of mental fuel that way. You need to be able to limit the decisions that you make each day. You need to save as much decision-making power as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because willpower is a finite resource, and they've already done a ton of studies in that, and that across the board, if they even have someone make even a small conscious decision before doing some sort of problem-solving task or whatever, that the willpower has been diminished. If they try to have a succession where this person has to make 4 decisions and this person has to make 3 decisions, the person who only has 3 decisions makes better decisions and is more confident and stronger in their decisions than the person that's got to do 4 haphazard. So yeah, that's a great tip. I know a couple of buddies that they've got the exact same wardrobe. Like they know what they're wearing for every day, because it just eliminates that decision. I just wake up, put it on, and I go, and I don't have to decide. And then they reserve that and keep that gas in the tank. So
and eat the same foods every day.
Yep. Yeah. I'm actually
and,
bad for that.
And incidentally, that's good for your metabolism too, because your metabolism can expect what you're putting into your stomach, and it can break it down a lot faster. So it's actually better for your health that way if you eat the same foods 80% of the time.
That's excellent. Danny, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
Well, I think we were going to talk a little bit about some of the hacks, like life hacks.
Yes.
You mentioned in the beginning, in the intro, you mentioned hack sleep and you mentioned hack email.
Yep.
Do you want to ask a question? Or
yeah. Well, what can you tell us? Hack sleep, hack email. What kind of hacks? Like how can we boost our productivity? How can we boost our lives? How can we get more done with less time, energy, and effort? What's a good hack?
That's a good question. So I wrote this book, Hack Sleep, because I just struggled with sleep issues so much. And I think sleep is like the most important thing in my life, because when I sleep well, everything is better. I'm more productive, I'm happier, I can focus. If I don't sleep, my IQ level seems to have dropped substantially. So I've done all kinds of experiments, especially when I was writing this book. When I created this course, I did polyphasic sleep for 4 months. which is basically I slept 4 hours a night, and I would take maybe 2 naps during the day.
Wow.
So there's so much I can talk about this, but is there something that you're curious in particular about?
Well, if we're going to talk about sleep, this is actually a great topic because, I read a study recently that if you get less than 7 hours of sleep, you're like something like 30% more likely to suffer from stroke later in life. So I'm actually on a mission now to
Or get into a car accident.
Oh, really? So
You're more likely to get into a car accident. I think it's like the same as drinking like a few, like getting yourself drunk, like drinking like 3 beers or something.
Because that's crazy. Because not only that, like I'm just, and this is like some of this I don't. All right, whatever. I question some of this stuff because I feel like I perform at a high level in a lot of things. At CrossFit, I'm like in the top 20, 30% of my gym, even though most of them are like in their early 20s. Most of these guys are like young kids. In business, I do really well. I just feel like in a lot of areas I perform at a high level. And I just pulled it up. So I have 741 recorded nights of sleep with this app I use. And now I use my Fitbit more, my Fitbit Blaze. But I used to use this app called Sleep Cycle. And my average time in bed was 6 hours and 3 minutes across 740 nights. And that's not asleep. That's hitting alarm on, hitting alarm off. And so after about a year of doing that, I saw some video with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he was like, you really only need 6 hours of sleep. He's like, I was a world champion bodybuilder and he said that, and that kind of like encouraged me. And I was like, well, yeah, that's fine. And I do that because I would grind on the rest. I mean, it's Elon Musk style, right? If you work 100 hours a week and your competitors only work 50 hours a week, then in 6 months you'll have done what'll take them a year. And so I kind of lived that, but now I'm very much more health conscious, and just because I'm getting older, and I'm in great health. I'm probably in the best shape of my life, but I'm concerned about the things, and it's more like, how do I maintain that? And I'm looking to like this. I'm like, oh, this is something that I've been doing that might lead. I might not like where it takes me. Jim Rohn's got a great quote: "Beware who you become in pursuit of what you want." And I'm like, that's something that I might have become that I won't want. You know what I mean? That I won't want like in 10, 20 years. So I'm actually been struggling the last month. It's been messing up my life trying to make sure I get 7 hours of sleep every night. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because you even talked about forgive me the not knowing the name, but the polyphase of sleeping, which I think is that's something Olympic athletes I heard did, where they try to make more of their day and their training periods. So can you just talk about that a little bit? Like, cause that's where I'm at. So it sounds like you're saying, yes, I need to get at least 7 hours of sleep. But can you do it in phases? Can I have an afternoon nap?
Well, first of all, I think the number of hours you sleep is completely arbitrary. I think it doesn't really mean anything. So any argument you hear of like you need to have 8 hours of sleep, it's completely false. Or you need to have 7 hours of sleep, it's completely false. I try to shoot for 6 hours each night.
Okay.
That's plenty for me. But then I usually take a nap after lunchtime.
Okay.
So you can Google this. You Google the circadian rhythm for your circadian rhythm kind of like dictates how your peaks and your dips in energy, and it's based on your body temperature, and it's also based on your internal body clock. So like certain things like your cortisol will spike early in the morning. Mm-hmm. So you tend to have your highest alertness around 9 a.m., 10 a.m. in a standard body clock. You have your dip in body temperature around 3 p.m. So it's when you feel like the most sluggish. Mm-hmm. So that's usually the time that I'll rest. And then by the time like 5 o'clock comes around, I'm back on the rise again. I'm back to where I was at lunchtime at noon. And that's when you have a spike in testosterone. So that's the best time to work out, like 6 p.m. after 5 p.m. So the first thing you need to know is that, 7 hours, 8 hours is completely arbitrary. And that's what all these blogs and all these newspapers and stuff have been saying for decades. It's completely not true. But I think once, sleep is such a complex process and that it's really about the quality of your sleep. So I'll often force myself to sleep less just so I can sleep better. And I'll even keep myself awake. I'll keep myself awake on purpose so that I fall asleep much later so I can sleep better. And the other thing I try to focus on is adenosine. So there's a bunch of things I focus on, but adenosine is one. So adenosine corresponds to the activity level of your brain cells, your body cells. So adenosine triphosphate is what gives life to cells. Adenosine breaks it down. When you drink coffee, it blocks adenosine.
Right.
So
ATP.
when you're engaged, but adenosine and ATP are two separate things, though, just to be clear.
Okay.
So adenosine breaks down adenosine triphosphate. And basically, if you want to accumulate more adenosine, either you keep yourself awake longer until you finally pass out, or you engage in more focused activity. So that could be like running a marathon. It could be doing whatever the hardest piece of work that you have to do. And the more high intensity tasks you take on during the daytime, the better you're going to sleep at night. Because if you're taking on like a really difficult exam, suddenly you feel exhausted afterwards because the the neurons within your brains, they're firing so fast, it's creating adenosine at a higher level. It's accelerating that. So that's one hack that I try to focus on. The more active that I am during the day, the better I'll sleep at night. So I try to take on intense activities. Working out is another one that you could do. That accumulates adenosine. Understanding light exposure is very important. So getting plenty of sunlight during the day, it releases serotonin, improves your mood, improves your energy, improves your sleeping habits. Making sure that you're getting enough melatonin at night. So I eat pineapple in the evenings because it's shown that pineapple boosts melatonin production by 266%.
Okay.
And that usually makes me sleep deeper at night. So my whole life, everything I do is with consideration of the circadian rhythm in mind, because that's my internal body clock.
Right.
So like, for example, I just know that, humans are not machines. So that a workday like 9 to 5 is completely arbitrary. I'm more concerned about, my circadian rhythm. When I'm at my highest alertness, that's when I want to do my best work. When am I at my lowest alertness? Okay, then it's time to rest. Maybe I should go for a walk in the park. Maybe I do some reading. And you can Google that. You can Google circadian rhythm. There's some other terms that I can't come up with at the moment. I think one is entrainment.
Yes,
and
brain entrainment. Yep.
Yeah, it's all about chronobiology. And I don't want to type here because it's going to make too much noise. But and I think once you understand that, you can understand, like, you don't have to struggle anymore. If you feel like you don't feel like doing something, just take some time off and come back when you're in the zone. Come back when you're in a flow state.
Say that again. Take some time off.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at, my conclusion is that you shouldn't have to feel like you're struggling when you work. It should feel effortless. You do your best work when it feels effortless. When a pianist loves what they're doing so much that they play the best symphony in the world. When a runner loves to run so much that they break a new record. If your work feels like a struggle, you're doing something wrong. And a big part of that is understanding your own biorhythms, understanding your own body clock and your circadian rhythm. Because there's some times when you can't get me up to do anything, and I'll just sleep at home. I'll watch a movie. It could be like the middle of a day on a Tuesday or something, and it's like, well, whatever. I'll come back later when I'm on the rise, my rhythm's on the rise, and I'll crush through a bunch of things. Because there was a study that, oh God, I can't reference it, but basically, when you're in the zone, when you're in this flow state, you can not only do like complex tasks better, but even simple tasks, you can do them in much less time. So even like brushing your teeth or putting your clothes on, even these things are easier to do when you're in a high state of alertness.
Right. And so being true to yourself and being honest with yourself and how you feel.
Yeah, and also understanding, your own internal clock, understanding your processes. I'd recommend my book, Hack Sleep, as kind of a good primer. But if you want, if you want other stuff to study for this, God, there's a lot of stuff out there. You could look up chronobiology, look up entrainment. One metaphor I like is Yuri Robic. 1 second, let me pull it up. So we were talking about willpower earlier, and Yuri Robic was, I think he set a record for the race across America. So the race across America is basically like a 3,000-mile non-stop bike race from one end of the United States to the other. And this guy, Yuri Robic, I think he set the record for the most times he won this competition. And I think he was sleeping like 90 minutes a day or something like that, and dealing with this crazy heat. He was consuming 10,000 calories a day. So it's just like, I found this really fascinating story. Like, there's some articles about him and how he was able to perform at this level for so long, for like 10 days, on 90 minutes of sleep a night. And and then you understand like how this performance works. I think you can apply it, when you can apply it to your own business and your own work, it becomes really fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. A ton of fun. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hack Sleep is the book. It's available on Amazon and probably any online retailer, I imagine, any of the usual. suspects. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. That's probably the best place to find it.
Okay.
And I also have a sleep hacking masterclass. It's on Udemy.
Oh, okay. Got it. Oh, perfect. No way. I might
So if
check
you
that out
prefer video
myself.
format.
Yeah. Bam. Okay.
And Udemy just discounted that course by a lot. So
Okay.
it used to be like $199, but then Udemy came along and put their price restrictions on everything. So
Got it.
I think it's only $49 now. But if you like, I can even give you a discount code for that too.
Sure. Yeah. Pass it on. Do you have one now, or you want me to post it in the show notes later?
Yeah, I'll make one for your listeners, and you can
Perfect.
get a discount. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll put that in the members area. Danny, thank you so much for your time today. I think this has been a real value-packed call. I think we talked about life things. We talked about business things. We talked about focusing on first things first. We talked about beginning with the end in mind. We talked about scaling your business and scaling what works and where to focus that attention. We talked about health and lifestyle and some biohacks and helping yourself improve your sleep. Talked about, being really content in life and not trying to get caught up in other people's nonsense or keeping up with the Joneses. I think there was a ton of stuff, and if anyone listened to this call without a pen and paper to take notes, they may want to give it a re-listen. I also mentioned your book, Hack Sleep, which is available on Amazon, plus some other interviews we did with other guests if people want to follow up with this topic. Danny, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Is there anywhere people can go if they want to reach out, get in touch, get on your list? I mean, we mentioned getting your book, but is there, if they want to get involved, they want to follow you, where are the best places to connect?
Yeah, sure. So you can go to openworldmag.com. That's my blog. I have my podcast on there. You can also sign up for the emailing list. And if you sign up for the mailing list, you will get an issue of our magazine for free.
Awesome.
Open World Magazine. And we have a lot of life hacks, a lot of inspiring stories, just things that challenge you and focus, help you to focus on higher goals. And we did talk about a lot of stuff. I apologize for rambling, but it's almost 10:30 at night here. So
yeah, no, that's good. It was good. I think, like I said, I think it was a value-packed call. So
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I've been a little bit. I admit I've been a little bit tired, but I hope that there was a lot of value. And if I get a little too wordy or ramble a little bit too much at the end there, I apologize.
You're good, man. You're good. So, all right. So anyone that's paying attention, if they like to get involved, it was openworldmag.com.
Openworldmag.com, and if you want to get my audiobook for free, you can go to buyyourown.island.com/audio-book.
There we go.
And I have the whole book on there as an audiobook format for free. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you again so much for your time, and it's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thanks, Daryl. Good chatting with you.
You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember, taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.